you have been losing power your entire life, and you never even realized it. Every single time you walked into a room and made yourself available, every single time you answered that call you did not need to answer, every single time you showed up when no one asked you to, every single time you responded immediately, reacted openly, and gave your presence freely to people and moments that had not earned it, you were bleeding. Slowly, silently, invisibly. It did not feel like weakness. It never does. It felt like connection. It felt like loyalty. It felt like being a good person, a reliable person, a present person. Society taught you that showing up is strength, that being available is virtue, that the more you give of yourself, your time, your energy, your presence, the more powerful and respected you become. Society lied to you, and you paid for that lie every single day without ever receiving a receipt. Think about the moments in your life when you made yourself the most available. Think about the people you chased, the conversations you forced, the rooms you entered, hoping to be noticed, the messages you sent too quickly, the invitations you accepted out of fear rather than desire, the relationships where you were always the one reaching, always the one present, always the one giving. Now think about this. Were you respected in those moments? Were you valued? Were you seen as powerful? Or were you taken for granted? The answer, if you are honest with yourself, is devastating. Because here is the truth that no one told you. The moment you become fully available, you become fully predictable. And the moment you become fully predictable, you become fully dispensable. Not because people are cruel, not because the world is unfair, but because the human mind at its deepest, most primal level does not value what it can have at any time. We are wired to pursue, we are wired to wonder, we are wired to want what exists just beyond our reach. And you, by giving yourself completely, by showing up constantly, by making your presence a guaranteed certainty, removed yourself from the category of things worth pursuing. You stopped being something to be desired. You became something to be assumed. And assumptions are never valued. Assumptions are simply used. This is the invisible wound that has been bleeding inside your life. Not a dramatic betrayal, not a visible defeat, just a quiet, endless erosion of your authority. A slow dismantling of your power that happened in the most ordinary moments at dinner tables, in office hallways, in text conversations, in social gatherings, where you laughed too loudly, stayed too long, and gave too much. Most people will live their entire lives never discovering this pattern. They will keep showing up, keep making themselves available, keep wondering why, despite all their effort, despite all their presence, despite all their giving, they are still not truly respected, still not truly feared, still not truly valued. But tonight, that changes for you. Tonight, you will understand something that the most powerful individuals in history understood, something that princes, strategists, and rulers of men have known for centuries. Something so counterintuitive, so fundamentally opposite to what you have been taught, that when you first hear it, part of you will resist it. Your absence is more powerful than your presence. Not sometimes, not in certain situations, always. Your withdrawal, your silence, your strategic disappearance, these are not signs of weakness. These are not acts of cowardice or avoidance. These are the most sophisticated instruments of power that exist. These are the tools that separate those who are truly respected from those who are merely tolerated, those who are genuinely desired from those who are conveniently used, those who hold authority from those who only believe they do. The moment you learn to control your presence, to give it selectively, to withdraw it strategically, to make it rare rather than constant, everything around you begins to change. The room notices when you are not in it. People feel your absence before they ever appreciate your presence. And that feeling, that gap, that void, that quiet question of, where are they, is the beginning of real power. There is something you possess right now that is more valuable than money, more powerful than status, more dangerous than any weapon, more rare than any resource on this earth. It is your presence, and you have been giving it away for free. Every single day, without negotiation, without strategy, without any awareness of what you are actually surrendering, you distribute your presence to the undeserving, the unappreciative, and the unworthy. You walk into rooms that diminish you. You give your time to conversations that drain you. You make yourself available to people who have never once asked themselves whether they deserve your attention. And then you wonder why you feel empty. You wonder why you feel unseen. You wonder why, despite being everywhere, you somehow feel like you matter nowhere. This is not a coincidence. This is cause and effect. Your presence is a currency, the most powerful currency you will ever own. And like all currencies, its value is governed by one law, the law of scarcity. Think about gold. Gold is not valuable because it is shiny. Gold is not valuable because it is pretty. Gold is valuable because it is rare, because you cannot find it everywhere, because you must search and dig and sacrifice to obtain it. If gold were as common as dirt, if you could find it in every street, in every field, in every ordinary place, it would be worth nothing. You are the same. When you are everywhere, you are worth nothing. When you are nowhere, when you are selective, when you are rare, when people must earn the right to exist in your presence, you become priceless. This is not arrogance. This is not cruelty. This is not coldness. This is simply the most fundamental law of value that has ever existed, and the powerful have always known it. The powerless have always ignored it. Think about the most powerful, most magnetic, most commanding individuals you have ever encountered in your life. Were they the ones who were always available? Were they the ones who responded instantly, showed up constantly, and made themselves permanently accessible? No, never. The most powerful people you have ever known had something about them that was almost impossible to define, but impossible to ignore: a quality of containment, a sense that they were giving you something rare simply by being in the room with you, that their attention was a gift, not a guarantee, that their presence was something you had to earn, not something you could simply expect. That quality is what you are going to develop. Most people misuse their presence because they have never been taught to value it. They were raised in environments where showing up was survival, where making yourself available was how you earned love, where disappearing, even briefly, felt dangerous because in childhood, disappearing sometimes meant being forgotten, being abandoned, being unloved. And so they carried that fear into adulthood. They kept showing up. They kept making themselves available. They kept giving their presence freely, not as a choice, but as a compulsion, as a defense mechanism disguised as generosity. The consequences of this misuse are everywhere. In relationships where one person gives endlessly while the other takes effortlessly. In workplaces where the most dedicated, most available employee is simultaneously the least respected and the last to be promoted. In social circles where the person who shows up to everything is liked by everyone but valued by no one. You have seen this, you may have lived this, and it ends today. Because today you understand that your presence has a price. And from this moment forward, you are the one who sets that price. Not the market, not the people around you, not your fear of being forgotten. You. More than 500 years ago, a man sat in exile and wrote the most dangerous book ever created. His name was Machiavelli. He had spent decades inside the corridors of real power. He had watched princes rise from nothing to become rulers of nations. He had watched powerful men collapse overnight, not because of military defeat, not because of poverty, not because of any external force, but because of invisible failures. Failures of psychology, failures of strategy, failures of self-control. Machiavelli was not a philosopher in the traditional sense. He was not interested in how the world should work. He was obsessed with how the world actually works. With the cold, unromantic, brutal mechanics of human behavior. With the patterns that determine who rises and who falls, who is respected and who is used, who commands and who obeys. And what he discovered after a lifetime of observation, analysis, and exile was this. The most powerful individuals were never the most visible ones. They were not the loudest voices in the room. They were not the most emotionally expressive. They were not the ones who showed up everywhere, gave everything, and made themselves permanently available. They were the most controlled, the most selective, the most strategically withdrawn. Machiavelli wrote about the prince, but he was not describing a person. He was describing a principle. The principle of strategic containment. The understanding that power does not flow outward from those who give everything. Power flows toward those who withhold strategically, who choose carefully, who appear and disappear with intention rather than desperation. He watched rulers who were beloved by everyone, who attended every gathering, who gave generously of their time, who made themselves accessible to all, collapse into irrelevance. Not because they were weak in the physical sense, but because they had made themselves too common, too available, too predictable. And he watched others, men who were shrouded in mystery, who appeared rarely and disappeared deliberately, who gave their presence only to those who had earned it, command absolute, unshakable authority, not through force alone, but through something far more powerful than force. through psychological gravity. When a ruler appeared, people leaned forward. When he spoke, people listened with complete attention, not simply because of his title, but because his presence felt rare. Because they knew that this moment, this access, this proximity to him was not guaranteed, could not be assumed, had to be appreciated. This is what Machiavelli understood. This is what the most powerful rulers in history understood. And this is what you are going to understand tonight. The principle has not changed in 500 years. Human psychology has not changed. The mechanics of respect, desire, authority, and power have remained exactly the same from the courts of Renaissance Florence to the boardrooms, social circles, and relationships of the modern world. Those who are everywhere are valued nowhere. Those who are rare become legendary. Machiavelli did not write this principle as advice. He wrote it as observation, as the documented reality of how power actually works, stripped of sentimentality, stripped of wishful thinking, stripped of every comfortable lie we tell ourselves about the nature of respect and human connection. The prince who shows up to every battle eventually becomes just another soldier. But the prince who appears only at the decisive moment, whose presence signals that something important is happening, is never forgotten. You are that prince. You just need to start acting like it. Power does not come from being present. Power comes from being missed. This is the principle that will change everything for you if you truly absorb it. Not just intellectually, not just as an interesting idea you heard once in a video, but as a lived truth, as a fundamental shift in how you understand your own value and how you choose to distribute it. Most people believe that power comes from action, from showing up, from doing more, saying more, being more, from filling every silence with words, from filling every absence with their presence, from making themselves undeniable through sheer volume, the volume of their effort, their availability, their constant, relentless showing up. This belief is the single most common reason why most people never experience real power. Because power is not volume, power is weight. And weight comes from rarity, from restraint, from the deliberate, disciplined decision to give less, to appear less, to be seen less, so that every single time you do appear, every single time you do give your presence, it carries an almost unbearable significance. Think about silence. A person who speaks constantly is background noise. You stop listening. You stop registering. Their words become wallpaper. But the person who rarely speaks, who chooses their moments with surgical precision, when they open their mouth, the entire room goes quiet. Not because they forced it, because they earned it through absence, through scarcity, through the discipline of not speaking until they had something worth hearing. This is the core principle. Power is quiet. Power is selective. Power is controlled. Power is not the person in the center of the room demanding attention. Power is the person at the edge of the room who does not need to demand anything, because simply by being present, simply by existing in that space, they have already changed the energy of the room. Power is not constant. Power is rare. You do not respect something you can have at any time. You respect something you had to wait for, something you are not sure will come again, something that required patience and effort and the willingness to be uncertain. Your presence should make people feel that uncertainty. Not the uncertainty of anxiety or fear, but the exquisite, magnetic uncertainty of desire. The feeling of, I am not sure they will stay. I am not sure I will get another moment like this. I need to make this count. That feeling is power, and it is created entirely by absence. By the times you did not show up, by the times you withdrew, by the times you were silent when others expected you to speak, by the times you disappeared when others expected you to appear. Every strategic absence you practice today is an investment in the power of your next presence. Every time you resist the urge to respond immediately, you are teaching the people around you that your response is not guaranteed, that it must be earned. Every time you leave a room before others expect you to, you are teaching them that your presence is a privilege, not a right. Every time you choose silence over explanation, stillness over reaction, withdrawal over engagement, you are slowly, quietly, invisibly building something that cannot be faked, cannot be performed, and cannot be taken from you. Authority. Real authority. Not the kind granted by titles or positions. The kind that lives in the nervous system of everyone who has ever encountered you. The kind that makes people think about you when you are not in the room. The kind that makes your name carry weight, even in your absence. This is what Machiavelli understood. This is what the most powerful individuals in every era have understood. And this, from this moment forward, is what you understand. When you begin to withdraw strategically, something extraordinary happens inside the minds of the people around you. Something they cannot control, cannot rationalize away, cannot protect themselves from. Their brain begins searching for answers. The human mind is a pattern recognition machine. It is designed, at the deepest biological level, to detect, track, and make sense of patterns. And when a pattern breaks, when something that was reliably present suddenly becomes absent, the mind does not simply move on. It cannot. It is physically incapable of ignoring a broken pattern. It fixates. This is not a metaphor. This is neuroscience. When the brain detects an unexpected absence, a gap where something familiar used to exist, it activates the same neural networks associated with seeking, searching, and craving. The same networks that drive hunger. The same networks that drive desire. In other words, your absence literally makes people crave you. Not because they are weak, not because they are foolish, but because they are human, because their brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and you have learned how to use that design to your advantage. Think about what happens when you suddenly stop being as available as you once were, when you begin to respond more slowly, when you start missing gatherings you used to always attend, when you begin to speak less in conversations where you used to dominate. The people who never noticed you when you were everywhere, they suddenly notice your absence. They look around the room and feel something is different, something is missing. Their brain cannot immediately name it, but it can feel it. And then comes the most powerful psychological shift of all. They begin to wonder about you, and wondering about someone is the beginning of being controlled by them. The moment someone wonders about you, the moment they ask themselves, why haven't they called? Why did they leave early? Why did they not respond? You have moved from the periphery of their awareness to the center of it, without doing anything, without saying anything, without performing, or impressing, or working for their attention, simply by being absent. This is the dark mechanics of psychological authority. And it works on everyone, on colleagues and competitors, on romantic interests and social rivals, on authority figures and subordinates, on friends and enemies. The human brain does not discriminate, it simply responds to the patterns you create. When you are always present, always available, always predictable, you register as background. You are there, yes, but you are processed in the same part of the brain that processes furniture. You are accounted for and then ignored. But when you begin to vary your presence, when you become unpredictable, selective, and rare, you shift from background processing to foreground awareness. You are no longer accounted for and forgotten. You are actively tracked, actively wondered about, actively pursued. This shift in processing creates something in others that you have felt before, though perhaps not understood. Obsession. Not necessarily romantic obsession, though that too is part of this mechanism. Obsession in the broader sense, that particular quality of mental preoccupation, where someone takes up space in your thoughts, far out of proportion to their actual presence in your life. Where you find yourself thinking about them unprompted. Where you monitor your phone hoping for a message from them. Where their name appearing anywhere creates a disproportionate response in your nervous system. You have felt this about someone. Everyone has. And the person who made you feel it, were they the one who was always there? Were they the one who responded immediately, showed up constantly, and made themselves endlessly available? No. They were the one who kept you uncertain. The one whose presence felt like a gift because it was never guaranteed. The one who created, whether consciously or not, exactly the pattern of selective absence that you are now learning to create deliberately. The difference between them and you, going forward, is that you are doing this with full understanding, full intention, full strategic awareness of what you are creating and why. This is where transformation stops being philosophy and becomes practice. Because understanding power means nothing if your behavior does not change. And behavior change is not a feeling, it is a decision. A series of deliberate choices made in moments when every instinct you have will be telling you to do the opposite. You stop making yourself available by default. You start making yourself available by choice. This is the first behavioral shift, and it is more difficult than it sounds, because availability has become your default setting. You answer messages quickly because silence feels rude. You attend gatherings because absence feels antisocial. You explain yourself because silence feels aggressive. You react because restraint feels cold. All of these feelings are your conditioning speaking. They are not truth. They are habits built over years of operating from fear rather than strategy. Beginning today, you interrupt those habits. Selective response. You no longer respond to every message immediately, not because you are playing games, not because you are manipulating for the sake of it, but because your response is valuable, and valuable things are not given instantly, freely, and without consideration. You respond when it serves you. You respond thoughtfully. And some things you do not respond to at all, because not every communication deserves your energy. Strategic silence. In conversations, in meetings, in social situations, you begin to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is weight. Every word you withhold increases the value of the words you choose to give. You observe, you assess, you wait. And when you do speak, it is with the full force of someone who has chosen this moment deliberately. Deliberate withdrawal. You leave before the gathering ends. You exit the conversation before it exhausts itself. You withdraw from situations while they are still positive, while people still want more of you rather than staying until they are ready for you to leave. You always leave them wanting. Never leave them relieved. Emotional containment. You stop performing your internal states for an external audience. Your frustration, your excitement, your disappointment, these become private. Not suppressed, not denied, but contained, processed internally. Because the person who shows you everything they feel hands you the map to their vulnerabilities, and you are no longer distributing maps. Presence as event. You begin to treat your appearances in rooms, in conversations, in social contexts, as events rather than defaults. When you appear, it is a choice. It is deliberate. And because it is rare, it carries weight. People feel the significance of your presence because they have learned, through your absence, that it is not guaranteed. These behaviors are not complicated. They do not require resources, or talent, or extraordinary circumstance. They require only one thing, the discipline to override your conditioning in the moment when it is hardest to do so, and that discipline begins right now. Not everyone will respond to your transformation with acceptance. Some will resist it. Some will challenge it. Some will work actively to pull you back into the patterns they are comfortable with, the patterns where you are predictable, available, and easy to manage. These are your enemies. Not enemies in the dramatic sense, but in the precise, Machiavellian sense, people whose interests are directly threatened by your power. The reaction vampire. This person survives on your emotional responses. They say things designed to provoke you. They create situations engineered to make you react, to make you lose your composure, reveal your vulnerabilities, and confirm their sense of control over you. Every time you react, they feed. Every time you maintain composure, you starve them. These individuals are not necessarily malicious, but their psychological ecosystem requires your instability, and you are no longer providing it. The availability addict. This person has been conditioned to your constant presence. They expect immediate responses. They feel entitled to your time, your energy, your attention, not because they have earned it, but because you have trained them to expect it. When you begin to withdraw, they will not receive it with understanding. They will receive it as abandonment, as punishment, as cruelty. They will try to guilt you back into availability. Recognize this guilt for what it is, a control mechanism, not love, not legitimate need, control. The social enforcer. This person uses social pressure to regulate the behavior of those around them. They narrate your absence to others. They describe your silence as arrogance. They reframe your restraint as coldness, your selectivity as superiority, your withdrawal as rejection. They are uncomfortable with anyone who operates outside the social norms that keep them comfortable. Your power disrupts their equilibrium, and disrupted people become critics. The mirror breaker. This person was using your constant presence as a reflection of their own value. As long as you showed up for them, you confirmed that they mattered. When you withdraw, you are not simply becoming less available in their perception, you are actively removing their confirmation of self-worth. This makes them dangerous, not through aggression, but through desperation. They will increase their attempts to pull you back. More messages, more invitations, more emotional appeals. They are not trying to harm you. They are trying to survive, but their survival cannot come at the cost of your power. Know these types, recognize them quickly, and understand that their resistance to your transformation is itself confirmation that your transformation is working. Everything you have learned tonight means nothing without this. Discipline, not the motivation kind, Not the kind that feels good on Sunday night before the week begins. The real kind. The kind that exists at 2 inches the morning when you have been ignored and every cell in your body is screaming at you to react. The kind that holds when you want to explain yourself and no one is asking for an explanation. The kind that maintains silence when breaking it would feel like relief. This is the internal work, and it is harder than any external strategy, because your emotions will resist this transformation. They have been trained over years, perhaps decades, to respond in certain ways, to react to silence with more communication, to react to absence with more presence, to react to uncertainty with more explanation, to react to distance with more pursuit. These emotional responses feel like authenticity. They feel like who you are, but they are not who you are. They are who you were conditioned to be, and conditioning can be reconditioned. Emotional mastery is not the elimination of emotion. The powerful are not emotionless. They are not cold machines processing the world without feeling. They feel everything perhaps more acutely than most, but they have developed the discipline to choose what they do with that feeling. They feel the urge to react and they pause. They feel the desire to explain and they remain silent. They feel the pull to pursue and they withdraw. This pause, this space between stimulus and response, is where all power lies. It is the most important real estate in your psychological life, and expanding it is the work. You expand it through practice, through deliberately choosing restraint in small moments in low-stakes situations until restraint becomes your instinct rather than your effort. Through noticing the moment your emotions begin to rise and making it a practice to slow down rather than speed up. Through treating every challenge to your composure not as a threat but as a training opportunity. Machiavelli understood this. The prince who could not control himself could never truly control anything else. Internal sovereignty. Sovereignty over your own emotional states is the foundation upon which all external power is built. Build it deliberately. Build it daily. Build it in the small moments, so that in the significant ones, it is already there. Something has shifted tonight. Not in the world around you, not yet, but in you. In the way you see yourself, in the way you understand your own value, in the way you relate to your presence, your attention, your time, and your emotional responses. You are no longer the person who gives endlessly and wonders why no one values what you give. You understand now that value is not created by volume. Value is created by scarcity. You are no longer the person who shows up everywhere out of fear. You show up when you choose to show up out of power, out of deliberate, strategic intention, out of the clear understanding that your presence is a gift, and gifts are chosen, not defaulted. You are no longer the person who needs to be seen in order to feel significant. You understand now that the most significant presence is often the one that has just left the room, that the most powerful voice is often the one that has not yet spoken, that the most commanding force is often the one that has not yet arrived. You see differently now. You watch conversations with new awareness, noticing who gives too much, who withdraws strategically, who speaks to be heard, and who speaks to land. You begin to recognize the mechanics of power in real time, in offices, in social gatherings, in every human interaction that previously seemed random, but is in fact governed by these ancient, unchanging principles. You think differently now. Before every response, there is a pause, a question. Is this moment worth my power? Does this communication deserve my time? Is this the right moment to speak, or is silence the more powerful choice? These questions, which once never existed in your mind, now exist before every significant decision. You operate differently now. Your presence, when you give it, lands with a weight it never had before. Because the people around you have begun to feel, even if they cannot articulate it, that something has changed. That you are not the same person who was always there, always available, always predictable. That there is now something slightly beyond reach about you, something that must be earned rather than assumed. And that quality, that intangible but unmistakable quality of someone who has claimed their own power, is the thing that changes everything. You have become someone who cannot be controlled. Not because you are aggressive, not because you are defensive, but because you have nothing that fear used to give away. You are no longer operating from the desperate need to be present, to be liked, to be included. You operate from sufficiency, from the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are valuable and that your value does not depend on anyone else's acknowledgement of it. This is the transformation. This is who you are now. From this moment forward, everything changes. Not dramatically, not with a grand announcement, not with any performance visible to the outside world. The change happens quietly, internally, in the decisions you make in small, ordinary moments that compound over time into something unmistakable. You no longer react impulsively. You no longer give your presence to the undeserving. You no longer speak when silence is stronger. You no longer pursue when withdrawal serves you better. You no longer explain yourself to people who have not earned the explanation. You act strategically. Every appearance is chosen. Every withdrawal is deliberate. Every silence is intentional. Every word is weighted. Every moment of access you grant to others is a conscious decision made from a position of power, not a default response made from a position of fear. You protect your presence, because your presence is your most valuable currency and you are no longer spending it carelessly. You protect your attention, because your attention is the most precious thing you will ever own, and it belongs only to the people, places, and purposes that have proven themselves worthy of it. You protect your silence, because your silence is not empty. It is full of the power that accumulates every time you resist the urge to give yourself away. You protect your mind, because your mind is the source of everything, every strategy, every decision, every quiet, the deliberate move you make in the world, and it cannot be sovereign if it is constantly reacting to the demands of others. Machiavelli watched 500 years of human power. He saw what made rulers great and what made them fall. He documented, with brutal precision, the one truth that has never changed across all of human history. Those who control themselves control everything. And you, from this moment forward, control yourself. You are not performing this. You are not pretending. You are not temporarily motivated by a video you watched tonight. This is a permanent shift in how you understand power, how you value yourself, and how you move through the world. The room will feel your absence before it appreciates your presence. People will wonder about you before they fully understand you. Your silence will carry more authority than most people's speeches. And every time you choose restraint over reaction, withdrawal over availability, silence over explanation, you are not losing anything. You are building everything.